When did you expose your parents' conditional love? My hands shook as I stared at the numbers, but not from caffeine, from what I was about to destroy. See, I was actually one of the top students in my class, but in 2 weeks, I needed everyone, especially my academic advisor, Ms. Rodriguez, to believe I was failing so badly that my future was in jeopardy. Because sometimes you have to break everything to save yourself. It started with 5 words that shattered my world. Oh, you're Marcus's sister. Every teacher said it with that knowing smile. My valedictorian brother had graduated 3 years ago, leaving behind a legacy I could never escape. At dinner, my parents turned every conversation into a comparison. Marcus never struggled with this subject. Maybe you're just not applying yourself hard enough. I tried everything. Studied until 2 a.m. until my vision blurred. Joined every academic club until I had no free time left. Pushed myself to exhaustion chasing a ghost. But it was never enough. When I scored 94 on my physics test, Dad frowned. Marcus always got 98s or higher. Honor roll. Why aren't you valedictorian material like your brother? Then came the night that changed everything. I was getting water from the kitchen when I heard Dad laughing with friends at our barbecue. Well, we can't all birth geniuses. At least she tries. At least she tries. That's when I realized, if they already saw me as the family failure, maybe it was time to show them what real failure actually looked like. Something that would terrify them. Something that would make them lose sleep like I did every night trying to be perfect. Academic probation. The one thing that could destroy college applications and make them finally understand what they were about to lose. I spent weeks becoming a master of deception. I practiced looking confused in mirrors, submitted assignments with calculated mistakes, acted overwhelmed during study sessions while knowing every answer. I didn't want to hurt my future. I just wanted them to panic the way I panicked every single night. The performance began small. Blank stares when teachers called on me, asking for help on problems I could solve in my sleep, carrying textbooks like they weighed 1,000 pounds. A's became C's. Teachers suggested tutoring. My parents' dinner conversations shifted from cruel comparisons to genuine concern, but they still hadn't hit the breaking point I needed. Parent-teacher conferences were in 2 weeks. That was my moment, the grand finale of my desperate charade. The night before, I couldn't sleep. What if I couldn't pull my grades back up? What if colleges found out? But then I remembered all those nights crying alone in my room, and I knew I had to see this through. I showed up looking like I'd given up on life. Messy hair, thrown on clothes, dark circles that weren't entirely fake anymore. In Ms. Rodriguez's classroom, she pulled out my file with a frown that made my stomach drop. I'm concerned about this dramatic change, she said, looking between my parents and me. This isn't typical academic struggle. This looks like something much deeper. My parents shifted uncomfortably. I think we need to discuss the pressure at home and how it might be affecting her mental health. Dad leaned forward. What kind of pressure? Ms. Rodriguez didn't hesitate. Constant comparisons to siblings. Unrealistic expectations. Conditional love based on grades. It causes students to shut down completely. She looked directly at my parents. She's not failing because she's not smart. She's failing because she's overwhelmed. The room went silent. 3 days later, everything changed. My parents sat me down with tears in their eyes. They apologized for the comparisons, the pressure, the impossible standards. Dad even called Marcus not to lecture me, but to ask him how he'd handled the pressure at my age. For the first time in years, dinner wasn't about grades. They asked about my friends, my dreams, what made me happy. They celebrated my victories without immediately comparing them to Marcus's ghost. Slowly, I let my real grades show again. By semester's end, I'd pulled my GPA back to 3.8, not because I had to prove anything, but because I remembered why I loved learning in the first place. Some people might think what I did was wrong, but it was the only way to show them that love shouldn't come with academic conditions attached.